welcome to Choosing Acceptance podcast with your host, Marie Mason. I am here to share some success stories and tips on how to overcome your learning disability so that you can turn your talents into a career. And I love to inspire children and parents and teachers with learning disabilities to go beyond their limits so that they can make a bigger impact in the world. Schedule a call to become a guest on our show at calendly.com/Marie V. Mason. I just wanted to introduce our guest in a minute before just going to keep us together. I so appreciate you being here, but we are starting off to the Choosing Acceptance podcast. I'm your host, Marie Mason, and it is a brand new podcast. We're recording our first episode, so I'm super excited. You won't want, if you ever watched me in the other podcast working for 3 years, you know we always give great information and have great speakers. We are going to learning disabilities and how to turn your talents into a career. That is the focus of our show. Around first, we're going to help understand the learning disabilities or get some support from someone that you know that is struggling with it. This is all about helping teachers, parents, business owners, people who are dealing with this daily struggle. I have a learning disability called auditory perception, which will be another topic for another show. So many myths that are still struggling around dyslexia and other learning disabilities. We're going to debunk those definitions throughout each episode. You're going to find us. We're also going to give you some really good solutions. Each speaker gives backstory about maybe how they learned about the learning ability, how they learned, their children learned about it, how they work with the children. I mean, there's going to be so many different things related to this, and we're going to bring you different perspectives, some people who are going to have learning disabilities, people who working with people with learning disabilities, parents of them, teachers, caregivers, you name it, even business owners who are working with that as well. I just want to bring a unique perspective because I know with having a learning disability, sometimes we get shunned and shamed for having it because people are ignorant and don't understand everything about it. Let's find a different perspective. Let's try to focus on building an acceptance. It's about the acceptance of the individual, not because of their learning. Help them highlight their unique talents. Let's focus on what they can do. Learning disabled students hear what we can't do all the time. You can't do this because of this. And I'm sorry, you just spoke to the wrong person whenever you did that. I would sit there and tell you, watch me. I would just go and do it. And I would surprise everybody because people didn't think anybody could do that. I proved people wrong all the time. And that I'm showing you that because you are capable of doing more than you think. You, it's a mindset. You need to know what we're painting pictures on this podcast. Definitely stick around. We're going to be giving you some great information. Our top tip of today's show, then we'll bring up a great guest, Parra, who's willing to be my first guinea pig. Thank you for coming onto the show.
Absolutely. And thank you for having me.
I appreciate it. I do refer to one to be clear about that. Dyslexia is difficulty in learning to read and interpret words, letters, or symbols, but that does not affect general intelligence. I learned something. I had some friends growing up that had dyslexia, Jen, and they actually were incredibly intelligent. But they had trouble, but reading frustrated them. It was hard for them because they knew in their minds what they were seeing was wrong, but they couldn't interpret it like the rest of us. That's why I feel like it's important to get some good concepts down for today's show. The month of October, you just told me, Jen.
It's Dyslexia Awareness Month across the country. It's great timing to have a whole month where we can bring a lot more awareness out, which hopefully will translate into the entire year.
Exactly. Meet Marie Mason from Charlottesville, Virginia. She is a podcast consultant for Liberty Virtual Solutions. She empowers transformation coaches who want to boost their business with podcasts by brainstorming the content and structure of their podcast. Our proven podcast roadmap will help you to develop a strategy for launching your podcast so that you can grow your business. Rebring your podcast to life at libertyvirtualsolutions.com. So Jen, a little bit of back of what you do. What made you start and what is it about learning disabilities, and specifically, why did you start working with people with dyslexia? So we're going to highlights, then we're a couple more questions and close out the show. Sounds like a good plan?
Absolutely, absolutely. I own and operate the Multisensory Reading Center. We provide dyslexia therapy, structured literacy therapy, and also just general tutoring that's based out of the Orton-Gillingham approach. So it's very specialized for students who have dyslexia or other learning disabilities. I got into the field because of my son. I was a first-year teacher when my son went to kindergarten, and it was very apparent, first off, that he was having a lot of difficulties just learning the alphabet, learning basic sight words like A and the. And as a first year teacher, I was a little freaked out because I was thinking, I don't even know how to help my own son. How am I going to help all the rest of these kids? And then, as you said, though, I knew that my son was highly intelligent. He was very verbal, very just
gifted, talented, it sounded like from our discussions.
Yeah, just some of the things that he was able to discuss, his interests. It was obvious that this was some kind of disconnect that I didn't understand. At that time, I taught in Texas. In Texas, we were fortunate to be one of the states where we were one of the first states to have dyslexia laws on the books. There was a dyslexia therapist on the campus. I connected with her, realized that, in his case, it maybe was not severe, but it was enough to impact his ability to really pick up on those all-important literacy skills that kids really need in those beginning elementary years. I was just drawn to it because I saw what an impact that type of specialized training and teaching can have for students. So from there, I kind of transitioned into a specialist role as a dyslexia therapist. And now through my center, we have the ability to work virtually. So we help students all across the U.S. and all across the world.
Now, just so I'm clear, where are you located and what's your center called?
Right. Just relocated from Texas to Colorado. Colorado is my home state. I grew up here, so I'm excited to be back home. And the center, again, is called the Multisensory Reading Center.
Right. Brilliant. No, thank you for that. Now, is it associated with a school or is it just a separate entity?
It's just a separate entity. We do provide services for a few charter schools. The majority of the families we work with are individual families that are needing specialized tutoring or help. They weren't able to get it through the school for one reason or the other. They wanted to provide it privately.
Brilliant. The reason why I was cheering Colorado, because I lived there for a year. I missed my mountains and I understand why it's like home. And where I live in Charlottesville, Virginia, it's central Virginia, and it's surrounded by mountains. They're really like foothills compared to the Rockies. So yeah,
right.
No, it's all perspective, right?
Exactly. So, we are grateful to be back in a place with lots of nature and mountains to look at.
Totally get that. I was looking at my notes and I was sitting there and thinking, as a parent, you recognize a lot of the struggles your child was going through. I can understand that because my mom with me, when I found out I had a learning disability for a grade. As a parent, how could you help your child cope with it? Because you said at first you weren't sure how to. How did you go around to find out and take care of the learning? Everyone has a different approach, and sometimes your story can help somebody else who might connect with what your story is. I'm trying to find another way of giving parents ideas on how they can help their child during maybe the struggles, whatever it is that they're going through. How do you help your child cope having a learning disability? What kind of help did you get them? What were you able to find that was a good resource for them?
Yeah, so for students with learning disabilities, there's a lot of social emotional issues that can come along with that. It's kind of almost a three-prong attack, I would think. On the first part, we want to assure both parents and the student that, they are not stupid or dumb or lazy, a lot of the myths that are out there about students with learning disabilities, that this is just a different way that their brain needs to learn. And so we talk a lot about the brain being like a muscle, and we're going to be working it out. We're going to be building new links in the way that they are designed to learn how to intake information, and just kind of work with them on seeing their strengths as well. Dyslexia in specifically is a profile of strengths and weaknesses. So while we do see this difficulty with literacy skills, we also oftentimes see a lot of strengths with students with dyslexia. So it's a matter of balancing that, giving them opportunities to engage and build on the things that they're passionate about, things that they are strong in, and then also recognize that we need to build up their capacity in the literacy areas, in the areas that they need the help with. Kind of showing them that just these days it's termed neurodivergent, where we just have a different way that the brain needs to learn, and just everybody's kind of on that spectrum. I usually share with students, I'm not very good at math. I have to have a calculator for math. I don't like math, but I learned how to cope with it, obviously, but that's just not my strength. However, I had to build up my capacity in that area to do what I do today. And it's that way for a lot of people. So they're no different in that regard. This is just something that requires a little bit different take on things. Then, just for the parents, recognizing that they're their child's biggest cheerleader, being able to advocate if they're in a public or private school situation for appropriate accommodations. Usually in the classroom, there's things that can be provided for these students that will allow them to access the general curriculum and show their knowledge and show their ability to learn, while considering that we're still working on building that capacity in their reading and writing skills. So things such as having extended time or having questions and answer choices read aloud in content areas will help them to be able to just engage and be a part of the regular classroom, feel like they're able to show their knowledge, and then take into consideration those supports that we need. So providing that truly inclusive environment is really the goal, and parents oftentimes can help advocate for that in a school setting. Also, just providing that intensive support for dyslexia and many learning disabilities. It is specialized. Structured literacy is the approach that is used most frequently. It's based on a full body of research that's out there on the science of reading. It also incorporates a lot of the Orton-Gillingham approach, which has been around for decades now and has proven highly successful for students. So that's really, at any time, a way to help students with these learning challenges overcome.
Brilliant. No, that's awesome. Thank you for that. You mentioned something similar to and when you said the neuro part, I'm thinking of like the neural pathways, like we're building those bridges between those neural pathways.
Correct.
That's what my understanding was. I just wanted to make sure I was on the right track with understanding it.
Essentially, dyslexia really is just a neurobiological difference. It's in the way that the brain structured to intake written language information. So the brain has specific areas that should be linking together to intake speech sounds and then map those to letter patterns. For students with dyslexia, that hub or that piece is just not linking together. So structured literacy, again, is that very important piece that provides that intensive intervention to build those links for those students, get that hub working, and be able to build up their capacity so that they can be efficient and effective with their reading and writing.
Perfect. And thank you for that clarification. And one of the things I've learned about learning disabilities is like I've had to learn to process information. And so I want you to explain about how dyslexia students can process information, because you probably learned that through working with your son and other people in children dealing with the same struggles. So could you explain a little bit about that? Sometimes I'll do a deep dive if it's important enough to bring up.
So processing issues really is a very, very broad term, broad issue. And so one thing always to keep in mind is that the profile for every student is unique. Even those without an identified learning disability may have higher processing Yes, I was just saying processing is a very broad term and it can incorporate different aspects of a learner's profile. So most specifically with dyslexia, it's a language processing difference where students have difficulty recognizing speech sounds and words, and that can impact sometimes all the way up to just being able to recall whole words or have memory for sentences. It can be more global in impact too, just having a difficult time processing through pulling out information into just our working memory, which is just a little sketch pad we have in the brain where we hold things together to put them together, and just various ways. So with dyslexia, generally we find the impact in reading fluency and being able to process through longer passages or directions when they have to be read. But oftentimes if it's read aloud to them, no problem, they understand and they can do the task at hand. So that's why accommodations can be very important, taking into consideration that processing can be a little bit slower or different. Even after a student completes remediation, they still may need that. So again, every profile is unique and it's something that needs to be considered and just worked with or accommodated for as needed.
Brilliant. This is good. That was brilliant. And that's exactly what I was trying to portray for this particular piece. I think this makes a very good introduction for what paints the good picture of what dyslexia is and some of the things that you helped your son overcome, which is a brilliant way of piecing it together, bridging that gap. So I appreciate you really coming on today to share about dyslexia. I think it's a really important that we bring awareness to dyslexia and other learning disabilities as well. I faced so many learning disabilities while teaching in the classroom also for 20 years. So I totally get what it is you're doing with your resource center, and glad that we have a resource center. Now, is your resource center available to everybody? How do we access that? Do you have something you want to share for a resource for the teachers from your center that you want to bring onto the show today?
Yeah, sure. We do work virtually. The majority of our clients' sessions are through Zoom, even with our schools. We're able to serve families no matter where they're located. They can reach out to us at our website. It's dyslexiasite.com. We offer free consultations just to speak with parents about their specific concerns, provide good information about dyslexia, them with next steps. Whether they use our services or not, we want to make sure that parents have a place to go, whether that's working with their school, seeking out a private evaluation first, or just their student needs help now. Regardless, we can provide a free fact sheet. It's called Dyslexia in the Brain. It just kind of explains what that means, what that dyslexia is neurobiological in origin. Those are, a lot of words that those of us not doctors may not understand. So it just kind of explains how that works, why dyslexia impacts the literacy skills for students, and then also how we can overcome, how structured literacy helps to build those links. So that's available for anybody to download. It's linked on our website, and I can also send the link as well to be posted here.
Thank you for that. Can they also connect with you through that website and maybe schedule some time if they have any questions?
Absolutely. I have several ladies who do help me with free consultations. So they'll either reach myself, Amanda Bush, or Christy Olson, who are our directors of new student services. We talk with parents all the time, just kind of helping them to figure out what's going on. You just need somebody to listen. Kids are our most important resource, and oftentimes it's not always easy to get
in the shuffle.
Yeah, and it's not always easy to have somebody who will just sit down and listen to you. So that's what we're here for, and they can reach one of the three of us. We are all certified academic language therapists, so we've all been trained to work with students with dyslexia, understand the nature in the field. We're happy to share our time and help figure out next steps and where to go.
Thank you so much. That's impressive. I did not realize some of that. I know we had talked before, but it's always good to refresh your memory and learn something new in the process. So thank you so much. That was a very great introduction to dyslexia and would make a great session for this first episode of our new podcast called Choosing Acceptance. The motto, sorry, my brain is just not thinking today. The hardest thing to podcast on a Monday because just not
trying to get going from the weekend. I get it.
Yeah. We will be airing it on our YouTube channel coming October. 1st. It'll be every Saturday at 12 p.m. Eastern time. I cannot wait. I will definitely make sure Jen gets access to this podcast so she can share it with her group. Let's bring more awareness of choosing acceptance and just it's all about a choice. It's like, let's highlight what people can do and what they're capable of doing, and not they get enough, like I said, about focusing on what they can't do. I say let's highlight the positive. I always was told, let's accentuate the positive. We're going to do that on our show. We're going to encourage you. Find out what skills you have. Let's find out what your talents. Let's make sure that you know that there are things possible. That's what we're going to highlight, these possibilities. It's about what's available for you, for all people with learning disabilities. I'm going to be highlighting a whole bunch of different ones in this show. I can't wait to launch that for you. So we are about to wrap up. Thank you so much, Jen. Parra, tell me the name of your company again.
It's called the Multisensory Reading Center.
And please share the website so people know where to access you.
Yeah, so again, it's Dyslexia site.
Good, I did spell it right. I had to make sure. Perfect. Now, I encourage you to take advantage of her offer. Go and schedule some time with Jen. She's delightful to talk with, and she can give you some great resources. You will also be checking out our YouTube channel, and it will be called Choosing Acceptance. So please check us out. And I just want to say thank you for listening. I would love to see you come back again to next week's episode. We'll be having another guest share a perspective on dyslexia, and we're going to be having more during the month of October. Thanks to Jen for letting me know this month of October is Dyslexia Awareness Month. How appropriate are we launching this particular podcast? So I'm super excited for this series. We are going to be taking a month at a time and seeing. I cannot wait to see what your comments are. Questions for our guests, they're always willing to answer them, and I can refer you to them. If you have anything you want to learn about something regarding learning disabilities, please feel free to message us and let us know what you got out of today's message. What has resonated with you? Please like, share, and subscribe, and that helps our channel grow. We'd love to get this as visible as possible because this message needs to be heard. Everybody needs to know that anything is possible. You don't have to stay stuck where you're at. You can move forward, and you can build bridges, like you said, not only understanding what it is that you're trying to learn and processing it, but you can build bridges and be difference makers. And that's really what this is about. It's just be a difference maker despite your learning disability, because there's so much that you have to offer the world, and we're here to encourage you to pursue it. So with that, I'm your host, Marie Mason, our guest, Jen. We're so happy to have you here and joining us today. We're saying goodbye from the Choosing Acceptance podcast, and that ends this week's show, and you all have a great week. So check out the next show next week. My name is Marie Mason. I am the author of Bubble Bear Special Problem. And this book destigmatizes learning disabilities in order to provide a better understanding of their learning disability process. It helps children to overcome their fear of learning disabilities so that they can contribute their talents by bringing awareness to how children should be treated in and out of the classroom. If you would like more to learn about this book, then go to Amazon.com and check out Bubble Bear Special Problem by Marie Mason.